I see a couple of people joining.
Hey.
Super excited to be here today. People writing in the chat. Yay. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our call with Casey Erin Clark, where we're going to talk about today what it means to go from career heartbreak to career breakthrough. Yeah. Before we get started with everything, I like to get some logistics out of the way. So we're currently recording this call. I usually schedule these calls for a full hour, but we can go up to 30 minutes and then leave some time for a Q&A after. And if anyone has any questions, just feel free to share it in the chat box or the Q&A box. And also a heads up, I have a nasty cold, so I hope I'm not coughing and sneezing all over the place, but super excited to be here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Belma McCaffrey. I'm the CEO and founder of Work Bigger. Everything that we do here at Work Bigger is about challenging the status quo. And when it comes to career, that means redefining work so that work is a vehicle for creativity and change and really living a better life. And we do that in three ways: community, super, super important to us, content, and then programming. On the content side, we launched the Work Bigger Stories series on the blog several months ago, which is where we featured Casey. And the Work Bigger Stories series includes interviews with women who are mission-driven. These women are changing the world by redefining work for themselves, aligning with other organizations that are mission-driven or whose values they connect with, or they're launching their own businesses. So super excited to have Casey on today. Your story resonated with me on a deep level. I'll do read one sentence about you before we get started, and I want to pass it on to you. But Casey is the co-founder of Vital Voice Training. She's worked with Sally Krawcheck's Elevate Network, BlackRock Financial Group, the Bullish Conference, Bryn Mawr College, and Penn State's Executive MBA program. Welcome. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, so why don't you start by giving us some background and just sharing a little bit more about yourself and your work.
Sure. So I moved to New York over 10 years ago to make it on Broadway. That was my dream. I am a musical theater actor from way back, and I grew up in a very small town in Illinois, and New York was the goal from the time I was pretty young, and I love living here. Totally love it. I was really lucky in my musical theater career. I got to do some really cool things. I got to be in a couple of off-Broadway musicals and debut some brand new roles in brand new musicals. I got to tour with Les Miserables for 18 months, which was amazing. Got to find the best breakfast in every city in the country. So if you need any recommendations, let me know. And I got to perform on the Oscars, which was unbelievable. So what I shared with Belma, the career heartbreak, was then not booking the transfer back to Broadway of the Les Mis tour. I got down to the wire, down to the very end. I was on hold for 6 weeks, and then found out that I did not book it. And the thing about the theater business, for any of you who don't know, is that the supply of talent is like here, and the demand for talent is like way down there on the floor. There are so many incredible people in this business, and the blunt reality is that most of us don't work, or at least don't work consistently. And but for whatever reason, while intellectually I knew that, I really thought this was my moment. This was the moment that the little girl dream of Broadway was going to come true. And when it didn't, it really messed with me for a while. I had just turned 30, and I was like, 30, it's going to be my year, right? It's going to be amazing. And then I had this kind of massive heartbreak right in the middle of it. And it caused me to do a lot of big thinking about what the direction of my life was. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I feel like we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
It's, and when we did your interview on the blog, I kept thinking, I'm like, well, we've all had those moments when we sort of plan our lives, our careers a certain way, and we expect them to go a certain way. And when they don't, it's like it could be a bit of a shock to our system.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, what was that transition like for you? Like, how did you pick yourself up from that?
Well, so the thing that you always have to do as an artist is what we call survival jobs. Sorry, my headphones are falling out of my ears. Survival jobs, which is like such a great weird loaded phrase, right? Often people wait tables, right? They temp. I have had a million survival jobs, everything from passing out Disney fans in Times Square to being an executive assistant for a couple of days for like a really high up executive at Ralph Lauren, which was super weird. But one of the survival jobs that I did consistently was teaching singing, and I loved it. And I still do that, actually. I went for an interview not long after not booking Les Mis for what I thought was for a singing teacher position. And instead they needed a speech coach for business professionals. And I was like, I think I can do that. That sounds like fun. And it ended up, my very first client was a woman who was actually my age, exactly, who had a podcast. And she hated the sound of her voice. She was getting vocally tired a lot. She was experiencing a lot of vocal fatigue. And she just didn't like how she sounded, but she really felt strongly about doing this podcast. So we started working together. We talked about breath. We talked about how to take space in your body, how to land at the end of sentences, how to tell a story in a really compelling way, and also how to keep your voice healthy. And I was having the best time with her, like so much fun. And as I got more and more clients through this particular business that I was working for, I just really fell in love with this. And I also found that I was good at it. And I had kind of a different way in than a lot of the other people who were employed there. I simultaneously found out that I did not like working for that particular company for a lot of reasons that I don't need to go into. But I had never started a business. You have to be somewhat entrepreneurial as an actor because you're kind of selling yourself, like yourself is your product.
Yeah.
But certainly never thought about anything like incorporating a business or like getting a tax ID number or any of that stuff. And I met a woman named Julie Fogg and found out that we had really similar frustrations with the speech coaching world, which tends to be very male-centric. It tends to be very much based on a model of, I will teach you how to sound like a serious person and put on your serious voice, and then people will take you seriously. And it's just not what we were interested in, and it's not what our clients were interested in. And so we probably with a whole lot of hubris and a whole lot of like, okay, let's see how it goes, started a business. And that was 3.5 years ago. And we were really passionate, and we still are incredibly passionate about what we do. And for me, the big catalyst, kind of all of this was swirling around at the same time, right? But I read a particular book that I did mention in my interview with you called Half the Sky. And if none of you have ever read Half the Sky, please put it on your reading list. It's an incredible book. It's about the major issues facing women worldwide. The 5 major issues. It's maternal mortality, gender-based violence, sexual violence, lack of access to education, and lack of access to financial stuff, right? So jobs and all that stuff. And it made me really angry, like really, really, really angry. And I kind of had that moment when you really connect deeply to a cause that you're like, this is such a huge problem. What on earth can I do about it? And the answer was in the speech coaching, in the helping, and I do work with both men and women, but particularly for me in helping women to embrace their authentic voice and get their ideas out into the world and feel confident speaking them and feel empowered standing in front of people as opposed to disempowered. And I really believe in women's voices' capacity to change the world and women's ideas' capacity to change the world. And suddenly this became really, really, really important to me really quickly. And that was very exciting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I have a few directions. I was making notes as you were chatting. So first, going back to the experience where you were teaching and doing voice coaching, and then you had that aha moment of like, oh my God, I really love this. One thing I wanted to call out there is that it seems like you are really open to what was possible. So I think that's a really important lesson, because I think what can often happen, I'm guilty of this too in the past, is when something doesn't go your way, we tend to shut down. But that's not what I heard from you. I heard that you were actually open to other experiences, and that's why this came into your life. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's maybe a bit of an artist mentality. I mean, first first of all, for the dead practical reason, like I said, that we have to do lots of things in order to pay rent, because you do not get into theater to be rich. Like you don't. Nobody gets paid very well in theater unless you're at the very, very top echelon. So like I said, I'd had a lot of jobs, none of which I have always been able to have a good time doing things. I think through sheer determination. There's a quote, one of my very favorite books of all time is Anne of Green Gables. And there's a quote in Anne of Green Gables that's something like, you can very, very nearly always enjoy something if you make up your mind very firmly. Of course, you must make up your mind very firmly. So it's, but in this, I think I was ready for a new adventure a little bit too, because the pursuit of acting, frankly, is a little soul sucking, because it is near constant rejection. And you're always putting yourself out there, and you're always getting up in front of people and offering kind of your heart and soul and your gifts. And they're like, meh, she's too tall. Or, meh, I like this girl better because she knows someone that I know. It's such a weird, and it's something that you get used to as an artist, as an actor, but it's also, frankly, hard. It's hard. So I think the combination of like being open to things, being determined to enjoy things, I am totally an optimist, but also just like a little bit of a sense of like, I'm ready for something different. I don't know what that different thing looks like yet, but I'm on the lookout for it.
Yeah. And I feel like too, now as an entrepreneur, because I always go back to resilience, right? Because you're constantly dealing with rejection as an entrepreneur as well. But I bet you're probably more armed because of that experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. My next question is, does acting and singing still play a role in your life now?
It does, actually. I was really fortunate. I just performed 2 nights ago at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. And part of this kind of big transition in my life has been, you know, thinking about that whole idea of personal branding. It's like, what am I? Like, am I not an actor anymore? Am I an actor who also does other things? Am I a speech coach who is like a semi-recovering actor? It's like, what? Like, so my personal website, full disclosure, has been down for like 18 months because I don't know how to say, like, I've got my speech coaching website, I've got Vital Voice Training's website, I've got, you know, a presence online. There's a lot of embarrassing YouTube videos of me singing. But like, I'm figuring out how to rebrand myself, right? And there's a little bit of a nasty myth in the theater world and in the artist world in general that's like, if you start doing other things, you've like sold out. Or if you dare to like your support job, you're not an artist anymore. And as I've kind of gone through this transition and added this other really excited piece to my life, I'm like, screw that. That's so reductive and it's so damaging because if we're not allowed to like our support jobs, and that means that like for most of our lives as artists, we're going to be miserable. And we're going to walk into every audition with this sniff of desperation around us of like, oh God, please cast me so that I can stop being a miserable waiter. Not that everybody's a miserable waiter. Maybe there are very happy waiters out there. But like this idea that you can't like this other piece of your life is, I reject it totally. And now I talk to my students all the time about rejecting that totally because it's so limiting. So that was a really long way of answering. Yes, I do still act and perform, but now I get to do it on my terms. And I get to only go to the auditions that I really want to go to. And I get to wait for random gigs like what I got to do this week to kind of weirdly tumble in my lap because I'm lucky and I know people and people know me. And I no longer feel like I'm in this like slog of like, all right, I'm going to make it as an actor. I get to be an artist and a businesswoman and an entrepreneur, and all of the pieces of my life feed the other pieces in a really juicy way. And that is so exciting and empowering. So I posted something the other day about speaking at a conference, and a really good childhood friend of mine, her mom commented on it in Facebook. And I love this woman. She's been a part of my life for a long time. And she said something like, you know, I know you trained as an actor, but I really feel like you found your true calling. And a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I might have been like, wait, no, I mean, but I'm still an actor. Don't let anybody know. You know what I mean? And instead I was able at this point to say, I agree with you. And the cool thing is that I still get to do both. And I'm building that multifaceted life on my terms. Is it always easy? Absolutely not. Am I like doing every single thing that I want to do all the time? No, of course not, because life doesn't work like that. But like, I'm getting to do lots of really fun things and use the gifts that I have to get better and to grow in all of these different pieces. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I actually think I saw that because we're friends on Facebook, and I saw that comment. I think it's always so just empowering and nice, but I also hear you, and I feel like what you did was detach from that label of I'm an actor and I'm an actor first, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really powerful and huge, because I feel like when we detach from those expectations or labels, then we can go out and do whatever it is that we want that just feels good.
Yep.
And we can have a different outcome, often a better outcome. So
definitely.
So I want to chat a little bit about your mission. You talked about the book, Half the Sky. How would you, like, if you could sum up your mission in one sentence, what would that look like?
You know, it's so funny. I can talk about my mission all day long. And one of the workshops that we do through Vital Voice Training is like how to design your elevator pitch. And I always feel like my own elevator pitch is not short enough. And mostly because I geek out about this stuff. I believe in the power of the human voice to connect us with other people, to connect our ideas with other people, to connect everything that makes who we are with other people, and to fully embody your voice and your presence in the world makes you so powerful. So my mission is to help people find that, help them access that, because the gift that Julie and I have, I think, I mean, other than the technical knowledge that we have, the gift that we have is to like see what's in the way and kind of just like clear it out of the way for you, because our voices are just giant balls of habits, kind of just like everything else about us is. We're all giant balls of habits, right?
Yeah.
Some of those habits serve us, some of them don't. We developed them for a reason. And when people speak about, this is way more than one sentence.
I love it.
Particularly when people speak about women's voices, they tend to talk about it in very reductive ways. Like, oh, she uses too much vocal fry, or she's using upspeak, and that means that she's not confident, or women should say sorry less, or women should stop saying just because it mitigates your meaning. Well, I think some of these things come from well-meaning places. I think some of them come from incredibly sexist places, and that's a whole other conversation. But any sort of blanket advice about voice and communication ignores this giant space of nuance in the human voice and in communication. So like telling women to stop saying sorry is, I think it's coming from a helpful place, but it's so reductive and it's so not helpful. Like sometimes
what do you think that does?
Say sorry. Well, I think it puts people in their head and it gives them this idea that there's one right way to do it, and I'm failing because I haven't found that one right way of doing it. And if I just keep trying harder and just keep following XYZ rule, then suddenly I'm going to be able to be confident. And if only that were true, right? For the like high achiever perfectionists of us, right? The thing is, like, most of the rules that we hear end up being directly contradictory or being full of double binds. Like, right? Let's take one, for example. You know, there was a lot of controversy over the book Lean In, because Sheryl Sandberg was basically, you know, people said like she was implying that women don't do enough already. And a lot of women are like, I'm leaning in so hard that I'm falling over, right? Mm-hmm. But this idea that like, you have to show up, you have to speak up, you have to make sure that your ideas are being heard. But then there's also contradictory research to that says that if women speak up 50% of the time in a meeting, they are perceived as having taken over that meeting, right? It's the, you know, be strong and don't be too wimpy or warm or people won't take you seriously, but also don't be cold and aggressive because then you're a bitch, right? these stupid reductive double binds, and this is where the anger starts happening.
Yeah.
The fire. They're so limiting and they're so unhelpful. And so my mission at the heart of it is like, you are enough. What you have inside you already is so awesome. Now let's figure out what's getting in your way. Let's clear it away. And then let's let you shine in the way that you're meant to show up in the world. And getting to help people do that is like so exciting and empowering for me as well. It's like, I almost feel like I'm cheating, right? Because like I get so much empowerment and pleasure out of seeing my clients step into their own power and their own confidence. It's like, it's such a joy.
Yes. So what would you say, because this is fascinating and I completely agree with you. I feel like it's a lose-lose situation, right? Like we either have to follow these certain rules by the book rather than tapping into our own gifts, our own intuition, and leveraging those to speak up at a meeting, at a presentation, whatever that speaking looks like, right? So I've been there too. Like, I'm like, don't say sorry, don't say just. I have to follow these rules. And if I don't, then I appear a certain way, and you get in your head and you're operating from a place of insecurity and stress.
Yeah.
Right. So in that moment, because I feel like so many of us have been there, what would you say is a good tip to be able to shift from that place of fear and stress to one of feeling more empowered?
One of the things that actors learn how to do really early in our career, and you never stop learning how to do this because it is a lifelong struggle, is we learn how to hold nerves and strong emotions in our bodies in a way that doesn't hijack us. Right? So like a lot of people are like, how can I stop being nervous when I public speak? Well, both the good news and the bad news is you can't stop being nervous because you're a human being, right? If you're not nervous, you might be a sociopath, right? Learning how to just let the nerves kind of be part of the flow of energy and to refocus, right? Nerves and the stress response is essentially your body's way of giving you extra energy to accomplish a task. Now, for our ancestors, that task might be running away from a lion, right? Well, usually we're not running away from a lion during a presentation, but our brain can't tell the difference, right? So it thinks that you're in danger. So it's giving you extra hormones, extra physical response in order to like do the thing, right? So your body's given you the gift of extra energy. Now all you have to do is channel it, right? And so channeling that into your message and into connecting with the audience is kind of the overarching theme of how we work on that. And it's, there are lots of different kind of technical ways to make that shift. Learning how to breathe, learning how to take space. Because one thing that happens when we get nervous or when we get into our own head is we stop breathing, or we start breathing really high. And we kind of constrict because we're literally putting on armor for a fight, right? So our whole body tenses up. So learning how to like let that relax and learning how to take a breath, but also learning how to like really get clear on the why of your speaking, what you're saying, what you want to communicate, how you want to connect with people, and then taking the focus off yourself and how you're doing and putting it on what you want to accomplish. I am here because I want to talk to Belma's audience about living a passionate, loud life, whatever that looks like for you, right? And boiling it down to that thing that you can really hook into and get excited about. And then those nerves can have focus.
Yeah. Oh, that's so perfectly said. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's something that we can all take away and just help ground us when we're feeling super anxious. Yeah. I remember seeing a comment that you made on Facebook, again, because we're friends, and it really stood out to me. You were talking about singing and children and telling them, you shouldn't say to kids, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm really curious to explore this a little bit more, that we shouldn't say to kids, like, you can't sing. Do you remember that? Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that was so fascinating to me. First, like, I really wanted to be a singer. It was like my lifelong dream. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to sing together. You're going to come to my studio and I'm going to play piano and you're going to sing.
You're going to regret that.
No, I won't. I won't.
But I used to hear that all the time. People used to say, like, Thelma, you can dance, but you can't sing. And when I saw your post, I was like, wow, that's really amazing. Like, I really wonder what Casey meant by that. So can we explore that a little bit? Just curious.
So like I said, in addition to being a performer and being a speech coach, I also do still teach singing. And I work with people of all ages, and I work with professionals, including child professionals, like kids who've booked way more like theater work than I ever have. And they're like 11. They're in their 5th Broadway show and they're 11. But I also work with amateurs. And one of the things that I like to do actually is use singing exercises with my speech clients, because there are a surprising number of people out there like you who are like, oh, I loved singing when I was a kid, but XYZ person told me that I shouldn't.
Yep.
So my father, I grew up singing with my family, like Von Trapp style. It was very dorky, but my parents are both very musical, and my dad directed choirs. And he really taught me, and it's a belief that I still am very passionate about today, that everyone can learn to sing. Not everyone can learn to be an amazing singer. Not everyone's going to be on American Idol or whatever. Mm-hmm. But everyone can learn to sing. And I really believe that singing is a fundamentally human action, right? It's kind of like the first way that we celebrated with each other, right? And I think that when it comes to kids and people shutting down kids who desire to sing, it's like you're literally putting a clamp onto them, onto their voices. And that's like, I can't think of anything that's more damaging to a kid's self-esteem at that age. It's like, and the opposite extreme of like teaching kids that they're an amazing singer when they're not, like, okay, whatever, that happens too. Like people think that their child is a special flower who's going to be the next Broadway star, or like whatever. Like that's a thing. It happens. But the other end of that happens so much more often, where it's just like, you should not do that because you're not very good at it. Well, first of all, if you shut that down, then they're never going to get good at it. And they're never going to just know the joy of working on something that you're not immediately awesome at. Because I feel like there is great growth to be found in getting better at something. And like, I'm also a big advocate of play to your strengths, like embrace your gifts, farm out the things that you're terrible at if you are able to do so. Mm-hmm. But like, that can also become an excuse of like, oh, my brain just doesn't work that way. Well, have you ever tried? Like, have you ever actually challenged yourself and gone? And so I'm speaking to myself here right now too, because like my doppelganger for this right now is structure within my business, right? Structure within running my business. So putting processes in place, making things more streamlined, like, because I have a little bit of an artist brain, right? Like big ideas and like shiny things and being in front of people, and like that's fun. And but like the day-to-day nitty-gritty doing the work is not something that necessarily comes naturally to me. But you know what? I have to do it. I have to get it done. So I'm going to. So I'm going to keep putting pen to paper and fingers to type pad and get the work done, because I can't make the excuse of, oh, I can't do that thing. Like, I feel like that's something you learn in childhood. Mm-hmm. You learn that it's okay to not be immediately good at something and to like keep working to get better at it, even if you're never a star.
I think kids should be learning that. I don't think we're always learning that as kids, unfortunately, because I think even with school, there's the pressure to get A's. I always felt that too. And like being perfect.
Such a perfectionist.
Yeah. And it holds us back. And I love what you said. I felt a little emotional just thinking about it, because it's true. I feel like when you're like sort of just like shutting it down and saying, well, you can't sing, you're not really giving that child space to explore and learn and take from that experience the growth, which is really the point, even if they're not going to go and be a famous singer.
It's that, and just the joy of making music, just for the pleasure of making music. And I actually have I have a couple adult students right now who consider themselves to be tone deaf people. And we've been working and like challenging them, and they're getting better. The thing is, like, there's only like a teeny tiny piece of the population who is actually physically tone deaf, everybody else just doesn't necessarily have the experience, or they weren't necessarily surrounded by music as a kid, so they didn't pick up the ear. But there are things that you can do to learn. And again, singing is such a joyous thing to do that I think everyone should do it. It's just, whether it's in the shower or at a karaoke bar or wherever, I think everyone should sing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. So we are at 1:30 Eastern. Let me see who else is on here. Hi, Lydia. Hi, Stephanie. I love seeing the Work Bigger members join. So I want to change a little bit of direction and, give some time for questioning.
Yeah.
And you shared so much great insight on the blog and the interview, but for women who are looking to get out there, whether it's to be an artist, launch a business, transition careers, but they're feeling really stuck and just really frustrated, what advice would you have for them to move forward?
I think just start with where you are, first of all. And I think most of the time when I encounter people who are like, I want to do the thing, right? They tend to be ambitious perfectionist types. Type A, like, I'm going to do it. And that there's a great fear, and I think particularly for women, of not being good enough, not being ready, not having like the perfect version of it to put out into the world. So the old chestnut of like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, I think is really applicable here. I think just like, sometimes it's about throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I mean, yes, that there are methodical ways that you can do that. And there are like really sloppy ways that you can do that. And I've been there too, but at the end of the day, if you come up with something that does work and something that people do respond to, then you have that information and you can build on that, right? And that's just the foundation. So it sounds really simple and maybe a little reductive, but just start and like do it and see what happens. And hopefully, and the other big piece of advice I would say is like, get your network in place. Start really investing in a really generous way with other people, because the network that has sort of built in my life through Vital Voice Training, through Dreamers Doers, which we're both part of, through now a new thing that I'm involved with called the Valkyrie Collective. Women are such phenomenal advocates for each other, I think, and we're so ready to like champion each other when given the space to do so. And when it's emphasized that like competition is a good thing, it makes us better, but it doesn't have to mean like side eye this business over here, like she's my competition, I don't like her. Like, you don't have to do that. It's not necessary. It doesn't help anybody, especially not yourself. So being generous and being active in creating a network of like people that have skills that you don't have, right? And then you can share, you can barter, you can trade, you can learn things from other people. And that's that, and Google University has been like my way of learning what the hell I'm doing when it comes to being a businesswoman now, right? It's like I majored in singing and dancing. Like, let's be clear. Like, these are things that are totally new to me. So I had to learn, I had to try, I had to fail big time. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just start. I couldn't agree more. And I feel like one of my favorite things is to think about, like, we talk about this in the Work Bigger program too, but what are you not so good at? Which is, it's so hard to be aware of what that is and to identify that, because we don't like to think about our weaknesses and where we struggle, but looking at that really as a growth opportunity and tapping into that. So for you, maybe it was something business related that you hadn't been exposed to as a singer and an actress, right? So tapping into that and being aware of that and leveraging that. So.
All of the above.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I would love to open it up to the ladies on the call, and then anyone too who is on Facebook Live, to see if there are any questions. So I'm going to give everyone a minute now. Feel free to ask Casey any questions, ladies, and let me check Facebook. We always have a bit of a delay here. Okay, nothing has come in yet. The delay is funny too, because it's like in slow motion, but we may get some questions after. Okay. Well, nothing coming in. So Casey, two last questions for you then. One, what is next? Oh, we have a question. Sorry.
Yay, good.
Leah said, no question, but I just have to say, I love Casey's energy.
Musical theater girl, total nerd, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So 2 questions. 1, what's next for you? And 2, where can we find you?
So what's next? Well, we just got finished with this insane travel week. We went to California and spoke at a company out there. We went to Philadelphia and spoke at a conference there. I did this crazy performance thing this week. It was like all the high stakes things in 1 week. And so the first thing that's on my list, honestly, is to take this Saturday off and breathe.
Yeah.
After that, we are, it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of private coaching. We're speaking at the She Leads conference at the end of this month in New York City, which is going to be really fun. We're experts in residence at the Bullish conference at the beginning of November, and just kind of starting to look at what next year's going to look like. My partner Julie just moved to the West Coast, so we are suddenly bi-coastal, which is a little terrifying, but also really exciting as we kind of figure out what the new incarnation of the business is going to look like. So lots of logistics things to figure out, but just getting the name of our business out there and figuring out how to continue to connect to people who need us and who want us and who we can speak with and share with. So Vital Voice Training, we are vitalvoicetraining.com. Unfortunately, we have not followed the cardinal rule of all your social media hashtags or social media handles must match because of other people having things. So on Twitter, it's vital_voice. And on Instagram, it's @vitalvoicetraining.
I'm sharing this in the chat.
You can sign up on our website and we'll send you a workbook for building an elevator pitch, which we think is really fun. Mm-hmm. And we have lots of ideas. We want to write a book. Like, we want to do an online course, whatever the hell that ends up being. Like, I call this the to-do list tornado, and I'm sure everyone on this call is probably familiar with this. Like, where you have so many ideas and you have so many things that you need to do. And it's like, here's the hazy, wonderful ideas. Here's the things that have to get done. And here's like the whole giant thing. And you look at it and you're like, okay, this thing needs to get done. But I can't do this thing until I do this thing. And I can't do this thing until I do this thing. And I can't do this thing until I do this thing. And then you're like, now I want a nap, basically.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Yeah. If we don't have any questions, I actually wanted to go back because you asked me a question in the email and then we didn't get to it. And I want to talk about it because I'm super passionate about it.
Okay, let's do it.
You asked me about anger.
Yes, I actually meant to get back to that. So I'm glad you're coming back to it.
I'm forcing your hand here because I was like,
I love it.
It's such a good question.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the Midwest where people like to pretend that they don't get angry. It's very much like, it's like, oh, everything's fine. How's the weather? Everything we kind of cover. It's a different kind of covering than they do in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a different kind of covering than they do in the South. It's like, look at me, I'm so nice, right?
Yeah.
So, and I grew up, first of all, with the best family on the planet. My parents are amazing. I love my little brother. But anger was not something that was really like a big part of our cultural existence. And also in theater, you kind of end up playing, theater people are always very on, right? Which can be exhausting when you're in a room full of people who are super on and it's like their competitive onness, but you never want to be like not the fun person to work with, right? It's about like, I want to be the fun, clever, sassy one, but I don't want to be too, angry. The negative emotion in theater tends to manifest as bitterness, which I think is a very passive emotion. kind of jaded, like, sitting back. So the first time I think that I let myself get really, really angry and went, oh, this is actually really motivational. Is as an adult woman, I think, was reading Half the Sky. And obviously this past couple of years, and I've been seeing on this day on Facebook, like today was all like stuff about the debates, not to get too political, but like, there's been a lot of things to be angry about lately, right? And I think that as women, we're so socialized to be nice girls. We're so socialized to be like, oh, everything's fine. Like, men can be angry, but we're going to be, we're the calming ones, right? I think anger can fuel you in a really positive way if you let it. And certainly letting yourself feel anger. And this goes back to that whole, like, actors know how to feel emotions in their body without getting hijacked. Yeah. Letting anger be a part of you and not something that you shy away from or hide or like suppress is really cleansing and is really energizing. I think that you've got to have some place to put it. You've got to have a place to channel it, and you've got to have something to do with it. Otherwise it can turn into bitterness. It can start to exhaust you. It can be something that either gets turned inward and gets all gross and negative, or gets turned outward in the wrong way. But I think anger combined with this deep desire to do something about the injustices that you see is like really timely.
Yeah. Can you give an example of like, what does it look like to channel anger in a positive way?
I mean, I think that, when you initially feel like it, sometimes channeling anger is just calling your mom and venting, right? Yeah. Or calling your best friend, or going and having a really hard run or a workout or something, right? Sometimes you need to like physicalize it or vocalize it. But then it's about taking action. It's about taking a concrete step to address it. So for me, getting angry about stuff having to do with politics has led me to speak up in a different way than I have ever been able to, but also like hone my style, because as a communication coach, I care very much about like, okay, are my words being received? So it's like continuing to do the work to make sure that my arguments are good, make sure that I'm practicing enough compassion, but also not letting myself be stepped over. All of these different things, it's like the anger is like a refining fire, right? It kind of gets rid of all of the unnecessary crap and just focuses everything like a laser beam.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up again. Like because it's so important. And I always think back to like when we identify our mission and that thing that anchors us and drives us, right? It's about experiences that we've had or something that we read in your case that really resonated deeply. It could be a personal pain point. And I think when we feel that anger, because it's such a strong emotion too, it just fuels that connection, and I think can fuel us towards action, and it just can really anchor us to what we're doing. Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought that up again.
And to be very clear, I feel lots of things other than anger.
I know.
I think that's the other thing is that, like, especially in a really stressful time, right, like we're having in this country right now, you have to make time for silliness and joy and fun and shameless pursuit of pleasure, whatever pleasure is for you, whether it's taking a walk in the park or watching Netflix or whatever, like making time for seeing the beauty and the good in the world and to be silly and joyful is also super important. But not feeling like you have to hide things because they're not pretty, I think is a big part of how I feel like I feel very strongly about on women's behalves.
This is so random, but when we talk about anger, one of the first things that come to mind is Beyonce's Lemonade album. First of all, I'm obsessed with that album. I still am. I don't know how long it's been now since it came out, but I saw her in concert last year, so it has to be over a year now. Yep. And I think that's part of the reason why she made such an impact with that, because she was so visibly angry and emotional. And I think she also addressed that in her work by saying, like I'm pissed and it's okay. And it doesn't look pretty. And this is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
and it can be powerful. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to hide it behind closed doors. I can let this empower me and empower other people to say, yeah, I'm angry about something too. And I can say it out loud, and it's not going to kill me. And it's not going to make everybody go, ew, she's gross. Right.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Casey. This was awesome. Leah has one more comment that I'm going to read to you, because I don't think you can see the comments. She says, this resonates with me so much. I can hardly contain myself. Yes to all of this. I love it. And let me just check once more on the Facebook Live. No? Okay, nothing yet, but I think that's because there's a delay.
I'm super happy to answer questions afterwards too.
Okay.
Email me. You can email me at casey@vitalvoicetraining.com. And happy to chat with you about the work that we do if you're interested in it. Answer any questions and keep talking. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Casey, for taking this time. It's been just so fun chatting with you.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll chat soon.
All right, girl.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Later.